The Essential Education projector range from Hitachi sponsors ICT programs.
And the majority of secondaries have.
Vision of where personalised learning is leading.
It's their world.
What are the issues involved in being at the cutting edge of ICT development in secondary schools? In this programme, we brought together some of the teachers and advisors featured in the previous two programmes to share their thoughts on developing ICT to deliver personalised learning. Clive Rosewell is Deputy Head at Seven Kings High School in East London. He's in charge of developing ICT systems which further the school's vision of teaching and learning, with a key focus on assessment for learning.
The challenge is now for schools, how do we actually put the technology into the hands of the learners so that they can use it selectively at point of need? And that's the point, isn't it? That they should be able to have it there when they need it to suit their own learning style.
Sue Wood is e-learning director at Cooper's Technology College in Kent. At Cooper's, they are developing and extending their virtual learning environment to deliver a 24-hour school.
Providing the access for pupils in terms of, issuing them PDAs or internet access or provision within school. I think it all brings in, a third element to supporting learning, and that's bringing in the home environment.
Brian Heavisides is head teacher at Redhill School in Dudley, where they are part of an innovative ICT pilot which aims to put PDA devices into the hands of all learners and teachers from Key Stage 2 upwards.
I think we're at that exciting stage now as the technology develops that we can inform children of how they're doing, we can provide the suitable tools for them to choose and select to their own personal learning style, and we can monitor and we can support and we can assess as we go along.
Shirley Hackett is one of the ICT advisors involved in the Dudley PDA project.
One of the big challenges for us is actually identifying the good practice and sharing it so that whatever we see going on in one school, actually we can share across the borough to move the personalised learning agenda forward.
Louise Doyle is a head of maths at Redhill School, and she has been trialling the PDAs in her maths class.
See what difference it makes to the graph that you produce.
My main concern at the moment is suitable software to use. The students are all very keen, I'm very keen, but I feel that I'm just being held back on what I can actually do in the way of personalised learning with insufficient software.
They got together to find out and talk about each other's projects with Bernie Zachary from Bector.
The education process is shifting outside of the classroom. There's actually the potential here for cultural change. Fascinating potential there. I think it can change this whole culture of how society views education.
To get the discussion going, they watched clips from the programmes. First of all, they looked at the Dudley PDA project at Redhill School, where one of the language teachers had some doubts about the technology.
I've been told that the PDAs can do anything that the laptops or desktops can do, but I've yet to see that. At first, when they came in, the pupils wanted to see how we could use them, and almost it would have been brilliant if we could have hit them with loads of fancy stuff straight away. I'm wondering in the long term how this will continue to be motivating. Will they want much more sophisticated software like you could get on a full-size PC?
We could get hung up on the fact that in our PDA project, the software at the moment is not up to standard. We understand that, but we can see the potential of where it would lead on to, and we're not going to wait for that software. We're going to move on with this.
You have a clear vision, you're obviously passionate about what your end result is, and you have the staff on board, even though one of the guys there said he didn't feel comfortable with it yet. He will do, because he's got the level of support that he needs through all the hierarchies within the institution.
The PDAs, they have a place, they have the potential, and I think once the software is sorted, yes, but they will be, at the end of the day, a resource. They're not necessarily the be-all and end-all. It's like any technology. I think they will be used, and the teachers need to know when to use them and when they're appropriate.
But I'm delighted that staff actually don't just accept things and say, we've got to make this happen. They do feel comfortable enough within the framework that we're operating to be able to say, I've got issues with this at the moment. I can see where it's going to go. I can see it's got potential, but I personally have issues. I think that's part of the honesty that's required in the whole learning process.
The important thing, I think, with something like the PDA project is this, we're at proof of concept stage at the moment. This is inevitable with the embedding of technology, that you need to get to a critical mass where people believe that potential is there.
For educationalists, it's very hard to make that leap, both financially and in terms of teaching and learning, it's a huge, scary jump to make.
You've got the accountability issue, which is upon us all the time. And when we're spending money, there's that big gulp and thinking, my God, am I going to get some return from this? And it's a question of holding your nerve and thinking, yes, this money we're spending is justified. I mean, there also is a case as well. At times, you've got to be brave enough to think, this isn't working. I've got to be brave enough now to move on to something else.
One of the things that I think is exciting about the current situation is that it's developing a new understanding of what learning actually is. It's no longer necessarily just a linear process. It's a much wider process than that, and it is personalised. It means something different to each individual.
The discussion turned to possible conflicts between personalised learning and formal assessment, and how ICT could help to deliver new forms of assessment.
The more information I have, the better a conversation I can have with that child, and the more focused and the more personalised, really, you can make that child's learning goals.
On a rating of 1 to 4, what would you say your behaviour was, the way you work safely?
A 2.
This is a group project,
Yeah.
and you are being a little bit harsh on yourself.
Okay.
But I think you do work safely, and I think you are being a little bit critical, so your behaviour to me is 1.
I think that personalising learning and summative exam results are in direct conflict with each other. I think that many teachers struggle to overcome this idea that they have to get a certain amount of content over to pupils in order to jump those hurdles that are presented to them at different levels through their school career. On the other hand, we're driving ourselves and we're being driven to personalised learning at ground level in the classroom and outside of school, and the two things don't necessarily complement each other.
We're accountable. Whichever hand you're on, the personalised learning or the other extreme, the summative assessment, we are accountable. The question is, who are we going to be accountable to? The student, the parents, awarding bodies?
Awarding bodies, exam boards, to a certain extent, they're being conservative because they're driven to be conservative. That is changing. That is changing. QCA are very positive now about encouraging e-assessment, and that is leading, I believe, perhaps too slowly for some of you, but it is leading and will lead to more innovative forms of assessment.
I think there are a wide range of ways in which we could actually develop assessment. I see video technology used far more. I see evidence of collaborative work being depicted through the use of ICT. I see the opportunity for youngsters to create and develop changing materials so that their websites are things that they can be constantly updating, and they can be showing ways in which they've understood and developed their knowledge and their appreciation of themes.
We were saying earlier that students are now being empowered to decide on what sort of technology to learn with, and so the natural transition would be for them to be empowered to choose how they present that evidence.
The assessment will be put back into schools, and the exam boards will be very much more a case of moderating. The exam hall will go, and it will be done over a period of time by the member of staff that's teaching those children.
And I think that's the way to go. I'm absolutely sure that that's the way to go, to put the assessment back in the hands of those who are guiding the learning process, so that we move away from the silly situation where a child doing a GCSE project last year had to print off their website to send it as their project, to the point where the teacher can work with that youngster alongside and see that website, interrogate the website with the child alongside them and make a valid and reasonable assessment.
When it comes to creating quality data systems and personalised content for VLEs, there was a fear that teachers are facing some steep learning curves and a much bigger workload.
Teachers have always said, wouldn't it be nice if we had this resource, that resource, this resource? But we've never been able to afford it. But digitally, you now can, because you can share.
It's a question of the time pressure and the technology keeping up with me. I don't know how many times I thought I'd like to just throw the laptop against the wall because it's just not doing what I want it to do.
The common misunderstanding from the outside of people looking in who make negative comments about personalisation, they have this vision of that it's where a teacher in the future will have to write 30 individual lesson plans and all the kids will be working on different things.
One concern I have is time as a classroom teacher. I'm having to run before I can walk, really, with the move in ICT. And where am I going to find the time to put in place all these wonderful, and they are wonderful, new initiatives that are going on? Something has got to go, something has got to change.
But I think with some of the technological solutions that we've got available to us now, that there are going to be cuts in time available to you later. There might, I don't even think.
It's going to be later.
No, but I don't even think that there will be an initial increase in outlay of time. I think, for instance, you could look at the resources that you have already created, and all you need to do with those resources is to upload them to whatever environment you choose to use in your institution, and they're already there. Later on, they can be improved on, edited, adapted, amended, whatever. But I don't think that there's that initial outlay that people perhaps fear.
I think the feeling out there is that there is a lot of workload involved, and it needs somebody to come along and say, well, look, no, this is the example of how it could be done and how life can be made easier in the long run by the use of technology.
And with things like that, I think, again, it's down to resourcing and the way schools are structured. And there are schools that have actually appointed ICT learning assistants whose job will be and go and capture this video and produce digital resources.
We have to realise that our teachers are there to teach. They're not there to do a lot of the things that we build into their role. And I think it's finding the time for them to be the leading teacher, as well as perhaps on occasions the leading learner.
At all of the 3 schools, Redhill, Coopers and Seven Kings, it was clear that teacher and learner behaviour is changing and needs to change to make the best of the new technologies.
It's been a steep learning curve for me, myself, using the palms. I think the students probably pick up the technology a lot quicker than we do, and I have learnt a lot from the students.
And we've discovered that children actually are logging on and doing work at some bizarre times, which how adolescents work. You know, so you've got pieces of work returned at 2 o'clock in the morning.
I think it's a new form of training that we're going to develop from this as well. I think it's collaborative learning between teachers and collaborative learning between teachers and children.
We can sow the seeds, but we don't quite know how it's going to develop. And the children, the learners, the teachers, it's starting to come from them, and it's almost bottom up from that way around rather than us imposing things.
We feel very in control in the classroom. The didactic approach is really embedded, and now, you know, saying that the learners are now going to turn around and say, well, actually, I'd prefer to do it this way, or use this piece of technology or software. I think the changes are going to come from the learners out.
It's very exciting, and it's a bit scary though when you're used to actually directing things, particularly for the school leaders, the heads and deputies and above. You know, we're used to saying let's do this, but now it's coming from the bottom. They're saying, well, no, actually we can use it this way. So it's a bit of a change of culture.
Traditionally, as teachers, we see ourselves somehow as at the heart of the learning process and on our own. Almost, and you know, classrooms have doors, and many people are glad when they're shut. What we're talking about with this new technology and with the personalised learning agenda is there is not just a desirable state, there's a necessary state of collaborative networking of teachers, sharing workload, sharing ideas, sharing their worries, their concerns, and developing the whole idea. And likewise with the children, learning together collaboratively in networks that may or may not include teachers within those networks.
If somebody had said to me then 5 years ago what I would now be doing with technology, I would not have believed them. You know, it's a very steep learning curve in the classroom, out of the classroom as well, and you do have to you have to run with it. And now starting to see the benefits of having run with it. And I think the same will be again with personalised learning, that you may not have exactly that picture of where you're going to end up, but once you 5 years down the road will look back and think, yes, you know, I've come so far.
Well, they're like a games machine. Yeah. They're like multifunctional, all-in-one, tiny things. They're like, yeah, really good.
It's a 24-hour classroom. It really is available to them.
Compared to a paper-based system, it's fantastic.
When this programme goes out, I can see my staff going, oh no, because they're going to hear me getting excited about what you're doing in your school and excited about what's going on in your school, and they're going to see my vision developing further, what's next. Meanwhile, they know full well I'm going to be demanding from them, as I do, high standards in the traditional sense within the classroom.
Essential education projectors from Hitachi sponsor ICT programs.